Hello guys, welcome to the Gaming Asteroid. I'm just gonna be correcting some mistakes that this guy makes in his video, parts, from history. Now, don't hate on this guy. The video's good, it's not bad. Honestly, I like it, but there's just a good amount of historical inaccuracies I feel like I need to cover up. So, if you want, hit the like and subscribe. But, don't hate on the guy. It's a good video.
What followed was probably the darkest period in all of Polish history. First, the Germans invaded, and then the Soviets joined them. The country was split in two between the National Socialists and the Communists. The Soviets deported Poles in cattle cars to become slave labour in the frozen East, and rounded up 10,000 educated Poles, most likely to form resistance, and executed them in the Katyn massacre. Whilst the Germans, well, we all know what the Germans did. The Polish set up an underground state to continue the fight, and eventually rose up in armed rebellion in the Warsaw Uprising. The Soviets were now fighting the Germans and moving towards Warsaw. They decided to wait on the eastern side of the city and watch as the Polish resistance were crushed.
Now, one of the biggest historical inaccuracies this guy gets is that apparently the Soviets waited for the Polish uprising to get crushed. Now, the Soviets, in fact, did want to set up their own regime in Poland. The only difference is that they didn't purposely wait. Like, they weren't just like, hear me out, hear me out. Let's just not help the people who are helping us. Right? They didn't do that. In fact, the Russians were in this thing called Operation Bagration, and that's... Now, I'll show it here, but the Russians could not push along the German army group center, which is where Poland was. They're having some success in Romania. However, their main focus right now was Army Group North in the Baltics. The reason why is that this is where a good amount of German armor was, and if they defeated this, they'd be able to free up hundreds of thousands of troops to defeat Germany. Now, as the Russians, you have to understand is that when the Polish uprising happened in August 1st, 1945, the Russians were dead in the middle of Operation Bagration. Operation Bagration was just a complete destruction and encirclement of Army Group North. Alright? This allowed, the success of Operation Bagration allowed for the Russians to weaken the Germans enough to successfully punch through Army Group North. Now, you have to understand from a logistical standpoint, taking Warsaw while the rebels was there would be logistically impossible. You see, while the Soviets had sent their good equipment, their good planes, basically everything in order to destroy Army Group North. Right? Now, in order to actually successfully take Warsaw during the Warsaw Uprising, they would have to redirect all this good equipment, halt their offensive, just to go take Warsaw. And this is because the Russians, they had two choices, right, in this time. They could either A, continue their offensive, Operation Bagration, and completely annihilate German Army Group North, and this would free millions of Soviet soldiers to go punch through the German lines. Or B, they could stop their offensive, or they don't stop it, and they just launch an attack across the river into enemy territory with minimal equipment. It would not have worked from a logistical standpoint. So the Russians chose for the complete annihilation of Army Group North instead of helping the rebels. So they didn't just choose not to help them. It would be a logistical nightmare to stop the destruction of Army Group North just to go take a city. Right? And honestly, it wouldn't be too long for the Soviets to take the city. Right? After Operation Bagration, they moved all those soldiers and all that equipment to the center, where they then punched across and took Warsaw.
The Soviets wanted a Polish puppet state, not an independent Poland. So after the war, that's what they enforced. And I found a
Now, him here, he's not exactly wrong. The Soviets did wish to control Poland. However, again, because they wanted Poland, this was not the reason that they didn't take Warsaw before they did. As I stated before, it was because of Operation Bagration and a whole bunch of other factors that led to the Russians not taking Warsaw at the time. So, he's kind of right here. The Soviets did wish to control Poland. However, this wasn't the reason why they didn't attack Poland during the Warsaw Uprising. Also, another thing that a lot of people don't know is that after World War II, the Polish government, who believed that the Allies had abandoned them, actually allied more with the Soviets than the Polish. Now, this would eventually lead up to a Soviet government being set up in Poland. However, technically, the Polish government at the time, they kind of signed up to it. Basically, at the end of the war, the Polish government is like, you know what? Screw you guys. Screw you, Britain, France. You guys abandoned us in our fight against Germany. And at least these guys helped us. However, this move would not be a great move because, you know, the Soviets took advantage of this, planted a whole bunch of communists in the government, and the communists took over the government.
common view in Poland being that we, as the British, betrayed the Polish in this moment because we started the Second World War on the basis of defending Poland from the Germans, and by the end of it, they'd been turned into a puppet state of the Soviets.
Now, him here, the British and the French did kinda abandon Poland at the beginning of the war. However, there were multiple different factors, and the whole topic is kinda complicated. So, the Polish defense strategy at first was to hide behind the rivers, right? They set up a whole bunch of fortifications across the river behind Warsaw. Now, this would be a good strategy, right? Just go in your forts behind a river and wait there for your allies to destroy the Germans and launch a counterattack, right? That'd be a good strategy. But no, the Polish, who feared that the allies would not do anything, decided to put their troops on the border. And because of this, the Polish lines were outstretched. And so when the Germans invaded, the Polish did not really have much resistance. So the Polish shot themselves in the foot there. Now, for the Allies, I can't exactly defend you guys here, because you guys didn't really do much. Right? The Polish hope in this entire war was that the Polish would stop the German army in Poland, and the French and the British would move in, secure the Rhineland, and destroy Germany. This would seem like a good strategy if the French weren't chicken shits, and if the French didn't. So the French launched a very minor attack in the Saarland. However, because the French, they didn't think they could beat the Germans, which in hindsight they actually could, probably, in 1939 from that standpoint. Most of the German armor was in Poland at the time. The only thing really defending Poland was a couple of infantry divisions. So the Polish, not the Polish, but the French could have beat the Germans. However, their hesitation in the war led to this thing called the Phony War, 6 months of non-fighting after Poland got destroyed. And, yeah. Another big thing, a big reason why the Allies were hesitant to help Poland was the fact that the Polish helped. They participated in the partition of Czechoslovakia. You see, about a year earlier, the Germans had annexed the Sudetenland at the Munich Conference. And with this, the Hungarians took southern Slovakia. And the Polish saw a golden opportunity and invaded a tiny little part of Czechoslovakia. I think it's called Zalosy. I'll put up a picture right here. But because the Polish participation in destroying Czechoslovakia, this ruined their relationship with the Allies and made the Allies kind of hesitant. Right? A similar thing happened during the Polish-Soviet War, where the Polish, who originally were backed by the Allies, or the Entente, invaded the Soviets, and because of this, they made them the aggressors. And because of this, no one really liked them. And so, it was not only the Polish's fault for their downfall, however, the Allies didn't do much either. So it was both their faults. Now, most of what this guy says later on is not that history related. But, again, don't hate on the guy. It's a good video. It's an entertaining video. I just thought I wanted to correct some of the mistakes this guy made. Also, dude, please, for the love of God, stop using map chart for your borders. They are wrong. They are historically inaccurate. Just use a map, dude. Not that hard.
That's all, folks.
Who's gonna carry the boats?